Hey, everybody, I want to thank you for investing in another episode of the Shareholders podcast, man. Back again, and we're on a hot topic this week. Just had to address what's been going on. It's not just a sports-related thing, but it's really popping off in sports lately, and it's a part of our ever-changing world. So I got some esteemed, highly intelligent and knowledgeable and opinionated people on with me today. First up, self-proclaimed, I should say, Swami himself, the sports know-it-all in his own mindset. Mr. Jeff Van Cobb, how are you doing, sir?
Monty Ma, what's up? That was a beautiful introduction. Thank you for having me.
And then also, I felt it necessary, just for the nature of what we're going to get into, to have legal counsel with us as well. Legal counsel for our network and other endeavors that he does as well. Mr. Caleb Green, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. Thanks for having me, man. Good to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so I wanna just kind of hit it. Of course, we know COVID's been everywhere. It's not affected one person, not on this earth. We've had to make changes, had to deal with things, had to adjust as we've been quarantined and come out and dealing with things. And we've seen that affect the entertainment industry. We've seen it in the workforce, schools, everything. The arguments that have jumped up, the back and forth and everything is we're just trying to navigate the best way to have commerce, entertainment, and do it in a safe way, education. So this has kind of been a thing in the sports world as well. And as these leagues have tried to decide, do we bring the fans back? How do we govern our players? How do we govern the people that help the players and the athletic trainers and the coaches and all that stuff, travel? And there's been a lot of things that have been happening. And every league, every major sports league, at least in North America for sure, has set mandates, set rules up. And as the seasons kind of go around, if you remember, COVID first happened, it was the NBA season and the NHL season, and that's kind of when it really jumped off, if everybody could call it the Rudy Gobert situation back then. Seems like so long ago, but then, right? Shout out, Rudy. Go get your money, man. And so from there on, the calendar kind of went around, and then it went to football, and they didn't have anybody in the stadium, and now we're back. So what we're seeing now, though, is that these leagues are now kind of, I don't want to say putting their foot down, but they're making kind of more stringent things because of the COVID vaccine. And so the headlines that really were popping kind of jumped up in the last 2 weeks or so, especially in the NBA, in terms of just a few players, but marquee players. And so the story first came out with player Andrew Wiggins, who was trying to decide if he wanted to have the vaccine or not. But the issue was if he did not get the vaccine, according to the state of California and what they were doing in terms of the cities, everybody's got different things, he might not be able to play the home games, which was 40. The NBA is 82 game season, it's 41 home games. And that became a big thing, and some other players rating on. So, okay, I want to ask you guys, first of all, your first thoughts, just your initial thoughts. I'll start with you, Jeff, and then Caleb. When you heard the Andrew Wiggins part of this, and we'll update you guys in a second about it, what were your initial thoughts when you heard his case?
With Wiggins, I thought he would fold, just like the organization has come forth and said that he would fold. I thought he was just waiting it out. A lot of reporting has come in that a lot of analysts are not giving these players their just due, such as Andrew Wiggins, because they want to hear what they actually educationally have to say for their reasoning behind not getting the COVID vaccine, taking this long, knowing what's at stake, in their respective places. I know all of California does not have this law, such as the Los Angeles Lakers. It's just city-based. So in San Francisco, they are mandating that you must be vaccinated in order to play. So I thought he was holding out, but just like the organization said, I didn't think Wiggins had the type of character, even from stories off the basketball court, and his character, that he would eventually fold and go ahead and get the vaccine. That was my initial thought.
Caleb.
Yeah, no, I agree. I thought he was gonna eventually have to get it because we got to look at the amount of money that's at risk. I could tell. Obviously, I don't know the collective bargaining agreement like sports agents and other sports and entertainment attorneys, but I figured there's going to be some way where if he's not playing, he's not going to get paid. And especially when you're dealing with that kind of money, you start losing. We saw that with I forgot the guy who's on the Lakers and now is on Boston. You lose that negotiation power, you'll never get that money back. And so, Schroeder. And so we see he had like a $80 million deal, and then now he's the third string point guard on Boston on the veterans minimum. So you see these dollars matter to these players, although it's a lot of money, and they'll act like, I got all this money in the bank. It's not just about money, it's about your earning potential. So I thought he was going to fold too. I thought maybe he was using it maybe as a way to get out of Golden State by kind of holding out and kind of seeing if they trade him away. That might have been an angle, but yeah, I thought he was going to fold initially. And ultimately he did. He ended up getting the vaccine just a couple days ago, they reported. So I thought he was going to wait it out and use that as some leverage.
Well, and I should have been clear as well. He was trying to use a religious exemption for reasons to not get the vaccine and usurp what the city of San Francisco was putting in as a citywide mandate for indoor facilities. So basically the city is saying if you're indoors with a group of people, you must be vaccinated or you cannot be there. And so he was trying to use a religious exemption. And I'll tell you what, I remember when the story broke, I went online. I was very surprised how many people were in support of Andrew Wiggins. Like, I was really shocked. Like, a lot of people were kind of like, oh man, they hating, the NBA. And I guess kind of the wrong perception was the NBA was doing this, when really it's the city that was mandating this. Mm-hmm. And the story was that the NBA would not give him an exemption. But I was like, I don't know really what the NBA is going to be able to do because the city of San Francisco, and so it's like that. So we went from there, and then he ended up a couple of days ago, I think he got the vaccine. But we have now even another more high-profile player who this could be complicated because he's a complicated cat. Now, Andrew Wiggins is Andrew Wiggins. Shout out, old Canada. We appreciate y'all very much. Love my Canadian people.
It's levels to this, Monty. We just talked about the first level.
Right. So now let me ask the panel again. I'll go in reverse. Kyrie Irving he's a lot of things. And I know a lot of people in the sports world kind of roll their eyes and flat earth theory and all that stuff. He's very complicated. And I wouldn't call him a malcontent or a bad guy, but he's just got a lot of layers, kind of like Jeff said. And he's very, I don't think he's even a rash guy. Like, he is very methodical with what he talks about, believes what he talks about. Now, he is one who is still, as I know, has not gotten the vaccine, and he is in another city that has that. So let me ask you now, guys, in reverse, what are your thoughts now on the Kyrie situation? And do you think he will fold?
Yeah, I'll comment real quick on the religious exemption part on Andrew Wiggins, and I'll jump to Kyrie. Yeah, that's very key, because now all of a sudden, being religious is now all of a sudden a cop out. Folks want to jump on it now, when before, folks wanted to, oh, I'm Christian. That was like, you wanted to keep that on the low. But now there's some vaccine. Now we see how people like to use that. They really like to use religion to their benefit when it benefits them, and not really. And with Andrew, my thing was, I was thinking about it last night. I was like, because they denied it, and they denied it really quickly. I remember the report came out that he was seeking religious exemption, and I think it wasn't even 24 hours that said no. And I think a lot of things goes into that. Like, he's probably gotten vaccinated before. I'm pretty sure the NBA has all of his medical history. So for him to all of a sudden just say, "Oh, I have a religious exemption now," I listen. You gotta be living this thing. You can't just be like, "Oh, I'm Christian today. Oh, I'm Muslim. Can't no, I'm Jehovah's Witness."
Well, my good friend, that whole thought process went out the door when the government told us that faithfully do go to church, that we couldn't go to church no more. So I don't think he had any leverage trying to pull that card because the government already shut that route down.
And they're going to validate this. Like, you can't just get up and say, you can't use religion as a sword and a shield, right? You can't. That's why in our Constitution, we have, although we do have freedom of religion, right? In situations like Jeff mentioned, when there's a compelling state interest and the law is narrowly tailored, right? You can exempt that. There's a case back in the 70s. There was a religious group who wanted to use a drug called peyote, and it was part of their religious ceremony. It was like a Native American tribe. In the courts, the federal government had that as a Schedule A drug, and they said, "You guys got to give us an exemption." And the court said, "No, it's a law of general applicability. It applies to everyone, not just you." So that's where this idea of exemptions came from, and that's again why you can't necessarily use it. But people are trying to use it as a sword and a shield. So that was one of the points I wanted to raise on that, because you see that now, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people.
Hold on, yeah. Let me ask you this then, because we're gonna get to Kyrie. Yeah, I heard you made kind of a nice little mini point in there. Is that some of us were vaccinated as babies, what I'm saying? Some people fighting a vaccine, and understand, let me say this now. I'm not going to be on either side of the aisle with this. I'm just stating facts, because you just said they might have looked at his medical history and said, well, you got a flu vaccine, when you was 20 years old. So what's the issue? You know what I mean? That's very interesting to bring that up, because these sports leagues, and what we could probably even say, even some of these workplaces could do that. And, I'm not sure with what you do, or Jeff, or what you do, if it's ever come to that with a coworker that you're working with or yourself, where a person is not wanting to get it, but,
So I can speak to you about that right now. I will not release my employer, but mandated. People had to make a decision coming back to work. If you were not vaccinated, you can no longer be employed. So there's so many other avenues that they've already cut those paths off, that just because you're an NBA player, it's a slippery slope. There's nothing to grab onto. Every other precedence has already been taken, as Caleb stated. Separation of church and state. Yeah. We all had to acquiesce 10 people in the building for months until local governments lifted and we looked at COVID rates. So that avenue is already gone. And then it's not just NBA players or San Francisco and New York. I have experienced that myself. That in my employer, you have to be vaccinated to be able to come back. I know we live in Las Vegas. There's a lot of places, especially if you deal with the public, where if you were going to come back, you needed to be vaccinated because you're dealing with public-facing guests. So those avenues are already gone.
Yeah. That's interesting too, because I think because again, it's so big in our culture, and we got sports shows and First Take and all that. I think sometimes we disassociate ourselves from that. And like a lot of people are like, oh, that's unfair. Why is the NBA making them do that? When, like you say, a lot of y'all, your employer is making y'all do this. Or, it reminded me, if you guys remember way back when the NBA put in a dress code and people lost their mind, And I'm like, bro, you work at Wendy's, you got to put on a uniform every day. Like, what do you, if that's what the employer, and people, and I saw so many things, and I'm sure, Caleb, God, I thought this was the land of the free and home of the. Listen, you can do what you want. They're just saying, if you want to work here,
right,
you have to have a vaccine. If you want to walk in this 7-Eleven, you got to have on shoes and a shirt, like stuff like that. And it's their prerogative in their business.
The example I love to use is, it's like when someone comes in your house and you ask them to take your shoes off, like if they don't take their shoes off, you can kick them out.
Right.
You want that? Do you want that right? Do you just want anyone walking in your house?
Right.
Your private institution like the NBA, like my job, Jeff mentioned his job. My job required it now. They were letting people go. They gave people extensions of time, and I won't release my employer either. But and that's what other big entities are doing that, because they're just so they won't let anyone in our law offices unless you show proof that you've been vaccinated. You have to bring your vax card, the physical one, and show us the dates, and they have to verify. You can't step foot in the door. Doors are locked. You have to have a key. So, but yeah, that's how they do it now. But yeah, I 100%. People are out there. We saw this. This isn't anything new. We saw this with the election stuff. People saying they're fraud. People just grab onto and have these misconceptions about the law. You're a private institution. You're a private entity. You can mandate vaccines. I had to get a vaccine in order to go to college. So I had to show them proof I had gotten vaccinated against the measles and the mumps and all this other stuff. This, as Jeff said, there's precedent. This has happened before. Even the federal government has required it before. And so now, but people are now, again, we see the importance of misinformation out there, and people who get their law degrees online and want to spew that in the comments section.
And one more point. I mean, I think with sports, we just lose our sense of reality.
We do,
right?
Yes.
It's a job.
Yeah.
They are employed.
Yes.
And they are working for the owners, and there are rules just like anywhere else. It spans beyond even vaccination. Like you said, any rule set an employer wants to give or an establishment, they can do anything they want pretty much because they own it. I remember when I was younger, I had 2 job offers, and I was given some wisdom to take one, but the requirement was no facial hair. And, you know, me and my beard are one. And so I was ready to walk away from this. And I was given wise counsel, you know, you better take that job. And I was literally taking phone calls, no guest relations ever, taking phone calls for 8 hours a day. And I had to be clean shaven.
Man.
And that's where it is. Now let me say this though, because, you know, and again, everything I'm in agreement with everything we've just said, but you know, a funny thing happened. I was at a store and I was waiting in line. I kind of walked up in the line. I wasn't paying attention. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this pit bull in the store he didn't like snap at me, but he made a move toward me, kind of a quick move. And then I looked and I'm like, yo. And it was a pit bull. Now, lady had him on a leash and she had on a service desk.
No.
Let me tell you right now, very quickly, I've seen service animals. I've seen how service animals act. This was not a service animal. Because she couldn't get this joker to sit. She couldn't get him to do nothing. I'm like, bro, okay. Now, you know what? Now here's my thing, because you both have stated, and you said I gotta show proof of vaccination. Are we good with that? Because when certain employers I've had have told me with dogs that I cannot ask a person if that is a service dog. They told us this: no dogs are allowed in here, but you cannot ask a person if that is a service dog. Like, they have no recourse to show any proof of it at all. You just got to let them go. And I remember asking my boss at the time, like, so then we allow dogs, basically, because how can I, you know what I mean? And I found that I thought this happened last week, and it just kind of hit me. I'm like, so I have to show my vaccine card some places, but this lady has got a pit bull in a store and nobody really can do anything, you know?
Well, number one, I've never seen a pit bull as a service dog, so ever.
So
never seen that. Number two, I think it's just the weight of the situation, though. You know, we talking dogs versus thousands of lives, so I think a lot of boundaries have just been pushed in the cause of, you know, really trying to save us from this pandemic. A lot of lines have been blurred. I mean, any other time, I mean, we live church. That's what we do. That's who we are. And we had to acquiesce, governments telling us only so many people could come, people coming in colors. I mean, this is foreign territory. Yeah. This is stuff that we have never, ever experienced. So I think a lot of lines just got blurred in order to try to remediate the situation.
Well, and Kelly, let me ask you this. And again, I know we're talking apples and oranges because pets are not an inconvenience per se. They're sometimes it's an inconvenience, but
it's still really a legitimate point. Yeah.
Let me ask you legally, Caleb. Could a employee, I'm just going to say, let's forget the sports thing. Could an employee find a way for recourse to state that I cannot or will not or am not able to get a vaccine but would like to continue? Do you see somebody really pressing this to the limit and trying to take this to the courts, Supreme Courts or whatever?
I think there are two groups of people who legitimately could get an exception. I think it's people who have a legitimate religious exemption, and you'll have to go to lengths to prove that. Right. You can't just, again, like I think Andrew Wiggins was doing, I don't know his life, but I think he was just trying to use the convenience of religion. You can't just use convenience. You actually have to show you have you're a bona fide, you have a bona fide interest in your religious beliefs. And that those religious beliefs are directly tied to, not getting vaccinated. So that's one. I think another one is medical. There are some people who medically cannot get the vaccine. They have, and again, you go through the proper channels of proving that. I think those people do. I think you're going to have a hard time showing, because again, generally, we do have freedom, right? Freedom to, not be the government to force us to have to do something, right? But in this case, when it comes to our bodies, right, again, there still are exceptions. That's the general rule. But in this case, there's a ton of case law already on COVID stuff, that COVID is a legitimate government interest. So that part of the test is already out the door. You got to stop the spread of this COVID-19 pandemic. And then the law has to be narrowly tailored. And as long as it's narrowly tailored, I don't see a court saying to any other group of people, hey, you get an exemption. I think those are the two that likely have the best way of challenging a mandate. And I think that's, as long as those two exemptions still exist, I don't see the Supreme Court or really any other, court of competent jurisdiction actually, shooting down a mandate.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know that, again, I'm really understand, viewers and listeners, I'm not even going to take a side about, I'm not telling you what to do, but just seeing kind of the reaction in terms of, I told somebody this, I said, we're never going to go back to how it was when this thing first hit. We're all Las Vegas based, and I remember driving the 15 and looking on my right, driving north and seeing a ghost town on the strip. Yeah. And I said, they're never shutting the strip down again. They will do whatever it takes to vaccine people. I was like, they lost way too much money. These employers lost too much, that now this is what we're seeing the back end of this. And so I said, it's never going to go back that. So to kind of get back to what we were kind of talking about, like these sports leagues, the NFL has said basically, because it was their interesting thing in the first season of COVID, where they had to kind of shift some games and people were out and they had to make some exemptions. This time around, the NFL said, if you guys have an outbreak, you're just going to lose the game. Like, we're not going to change no game. If you can't handle, they're telling these teams now, and they put that out there. And there's been, like, I know the Minnesota Vikings had a situation and some of them are not. And now we're seeing this. And like you say, it's just like it is in the real world. There are guys who are quarterbacks, especially who, like Cam Newton, as of what we know now, is not vaccinated. Yeah. And so if you're a team thinking about picking him up, you then have to worry about, well, because you don't have to get COVID to go into the COVID protocol if you're not vaccinated. So if he ends up going to the COVID protocol, that's a week. That means we're losing him for a game. So do I really want to bring a guy like that in? Like, they're making these kind of decisions on everybody. So in the sports world, if you're not, it could be a detriment to the team, because if they bring you on and then you got to sit out and, we're trying to play games. So we're going to get back to it now with Kyrie. What do you guys feel this Kyrie situation is going to end up being? Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, Kyrie, I don't know. Because, I mean, we got to look at Kyrie's track record. I mean, the man's on wax saying the world is flat, the earth is flat. He had that situation. I don't know if it was when he was at the Nets or Boston. They were trying to take a photo of him. He had his hat on and said, hey, can you take your hat off? And he was like, no, just Photoshop it out. He's being real belligerent. You know how he is with the media. So, I mean, part of this could just be show, because I've never understood why Kyrie did really anything. It's not like he has like an end goal. Like you think of like LeBron will say stuff and he has like an agenda, or other players have, you can see, okay, there's an end goal to you saying this. I don't know what his end goal is. I honestly could see him. He's so eccentric. I could see him not getting vaccinated. I could see him like either retiring early and just waiting it out, or I could see him just trying. I could see a world where Kyrie's trying to play 41 games because all the away games and none of the home games. It's kind of a wild card with him. More than likely, I think that if he doesn't, I think he gets moved. I think probably there'd be a Ben Simmons trade for him or something like that. But he kind of does have some leverage here, because if he doesn't get vaccinated, he's not like Andrew Wiggins. He's got a little bit more leverage to get moved if that's what he's trying to do. So he could be using it for some trade leverage. But yeah, Kyrie, it's hard to say what he's trying, what is going to happen, just because given his track record, he doesn't really have
special brother. Go ahead, Jeff. You got to.
Yeah. I feel like I failed in this situation with Kyrie. Years ago, I was at the airport. I ran into him. I was like, yo, I'm Drew. Took a picture. And I feel like I should have witnessed to him or something, because at that point, my man just took a sharp left turn.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gone through so many phases, man. I loved him when he was first coming out, rest in peace, Kobe, that clip of him at the Olympics. That's one of my favorite clips to watch, when he wanted to play him one-on-one. He went through the Uncle Drew phase. I like LeBron, I hate your guts, Boston, I'm out of here. It's so many phases with Kyrie that it's hard to put your finger on what. I agree with Stephen A. Smith. He could do anything. I think, if like Caleb said, if he retired and he would be the person to do it, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Like he's, walking and no disrespect to, he's claiming, his heritage now, he calls his brothers his tribe. He's just into a lot of different things. So I can't respect it in some senses, but you've seen so many phases. So he's definitely not Andrew Wiggins, because under contract, he's to make $35 million this season. So each home game that he would miss would be $381,000, $181.22.
Yeah.
My Lord.
Yeah. So he would be penalized a total of $15 million if he did this. He could go either way. He could honestly go either way. I really believe that. Now one thing to note though, right? The NBA has not mandated vaccination.
They can't.
Now that's not a true statement. They have not mandated it.
Yeah.
But they've made so many loopholes that a team is not going to. He literally comes on the other day via Zoom because he couldn't be at media day, and he says, I don't want to be a distraction. What are you talking about? You are the biggest distraction of the offseason to your team. And rumor has it, if it wasn't for KD vouching for this guy, Kyrie would have probably already been gone off that team, because the team is not going to sit through a season. And we know these short windows where you can put teams together and try to win a championship. They already got injured last year, right? They already dealt with another side of health, and they're not going to go through a whole season with Kyrie playing half the games. I don't believe that at all. So either Kyrie's going to do something crazy, or the Nets going to do something crazy, because they're not keeping him for 41 games. With that distraction will snowball. It will never go away. It will be on First Take. It will be on every morning show, every day. Every time Kyrie doesn't play, it's going to be an issue.
He's been a distraction. He was burning sage before a game. I was like, Adam Silver is sitting in his office like, now I gotta make a rule about Bird and
now I gotta do a save.
Kyrie.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, I'll tell you this: there's no way he can stay with the Nets if he doesn't get vaccinated.
No.
Because again, guys, you gotta understand, he could be moved to Chicago and like play all Chicago's games, because right now I believe there's no citywide mandate indoors for Chicago. But there's certain cities where it is. So the city he's in, you can't be you can't be on a team and only be playing half the games just for this, when other guys have and like, just recently, LeBron just was recently vaccinated. He's on his while. And so I do believe Kyrie is not going to be he's going to do what he feels like. I don't know the Bradley Beal situation. I don't believe he's vaccinated yet, but again, I believe the DMV is not mandated indoor facilities yet. So Brad Beal might slide with it. But a person made a good point as well, is that these players, it's not just the 12 guys and the coach. There are a lot of people who, if I'm the guy that wraps ankles, am I comfortable wrapping Kyrie's ankles knowing that he's not vaccinated? I don't know who he rocked with, where he's coming from, and then I don't want to take some home. There's so many more moving pieces with this, and we've seen some of this in football and in baseball as well.
They I mean to cut you off, but they put so many protocols in for unvaccinated players that your locker has to be in a different spot. You have to constantly get tested. You can't practice. You can't practice at your home facility with the team. There's no way this could continue throughout the season.
Yeah, it's kind of what I said with Cam Newton. It's like, in today's sports landscape, to bring in an unvaccinated player is a lot. It is a lot.
And they lying when they say it had nothing to do with him being cut.
Yes, it did.
Of course it did.
Oh, yes, it did. Yes, it did. Because
Lord Jesus.
They had lost him a week before in the preseason. He had to miss a week. So it's going to be very interesting, guys. And as we've said, though, we're kind of focusing on sports, but everybody can talk about this. Your job that you work, wherever you are, whoever is listening to this, they've at least put up some protocols, and they're not mandating it. You got to do this if you want. Because again, I always say this: it's a global pandemic. We ain't seen nothing like this in 100 years. So we don't always have all the answers. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, we ain't got the answer, Sway. We ain't got the answer. Okay. Yeah. Kanye was right on that. But
we can cut these cameras off right now.
Because wasn't having it. It's going to be very interesting, because I think the NBA too just resonates more because the players are more personable. I don't know what the cornerback for the Chargers looks like. He out there, but I do know what like Trevor Ariza looks like. What I'm saying? I know what what's the guy, what I mean? That's Lonzo Ball. I know what he looks like. So it's different,
Yeah, it is. The NBA, because in the NFL, dudes got on helmets. You ask me who's a third string safety for the Patriots, I don't know. But if you ask me who like Alex Caruso is, like I know who he is. He ain't even a starter. Yeah. Because they're just front facing, you can see them. And to Jeff's point, like, the NBA hasn't, because they can't, because they got the CBA. They have a collective bargaining agreement. In order for them to make that mandatory, right, they have to do that. Now, teams can, cities, as we've seen, can, states can make these other requirements. But honestly, it's a matter of time before more of these states pick up with these. Now, I did hear there's some treatment that just came out for COVID, I think the other day. I don't know how well that'll play out. That may be a mitigating factor, but I just see it like, it's just like with the when I think the state of California passed that law about college players being able to exploit their name, image, and likeness. Yeah. All lawyers, we was like, it's just a matter of time now, because California will do it, and then Florida will do it, and then Alabama will do it. And then all the best sports players are going to be able to want to exploit their name, image, and likeness. So it's just a domino effect, and you're just going to see that consistently. So, but the NBA is not going to be able to do it, but they might not have to, because like you said, all these hoops they got to jump through, on top of government slowly but surely in a lot of these places, maybe not all, and it'll trickle through, but I think we'll start seeing more of these mandates, especially in these large settings. Vegas just did it. The Raiders, if you want to go there, you got to show proof, and you can get your shot right outside before you go inside. You have to show proof that you've been vaccinated. So it's just a matter of time. And there's all these different moving parts. Doesn't have to be the league. It could be the team. It could be the facility, just the facility that you're in, especially if the team doesn't own it. If, like, for example, the Lakers don't own Staples, that's owned by someone else. If Staples Center says we mandating, and they probably would do for legal reasons, because they don't want to catch a big, I'm sure some personal injury attorney was licking his chops, some outbreak back to Staples Center.
But you know what's funny is last season, the 49ers, I think 2 games into the season, Santa Clara, the county where they play in, said, now this is last year's pandemic stuff, so we're deep into it. They were like, no contact sports of any kind, or something like that. And the 49ers had to end up playing out the season in Arizona, out of the state because of that, in the middle. And so that's a great point. You know, I think like 90% of the NBA is vaccinated. But, you know, if a month from now, season starts in the city of Denver, is like, okay, no more indoor stuff, and Jokic ain't vaccine, that's a big problem. You know what I'm saying? So
now let me ask one question, because there's always the slant with these players of the question of entitlement, right? There's always going to be the vein. I know this has nothing to do with it, but the Simmons situation, that these players are contractually obligated to fulfill their due with their employer. They signed a deal, blah, blah, blah. So even with COVID, it's like, there's a lot of people that's going to say, you about to make almost $35 million and you just not showing up. Like, what do you guys think? What side are you on with that? Do they, as players, have the right? Or, as a lot of people say, you know, we know it's been used in other contexts, but should they just shut up and play? Should they just do their job since they're being paid so much?
Well, yeah, that's interesting, because again, you know, I'll say a third time, I'm not telling somebody what to do. Yeah. And, you know, if you really have the courage of, listen, I've never, since I've been a grown person, I never got a flu vaccine. I never done none of that stuff. You know, I'm like, I'm fine. You know what I mean? I didn't really have no flag to plant. That was just me. So if you really feel like this is what you and your family want to do, all that, but I really feel like, for me, I think each person's got to make their own decision. I want guys to play, you know, because kind of like we get into where they're doing the rest thing and all that. I want them to play. I want them to, you know, be out there. But I'm not, like I said, if Kyrie doesn't play, I mean, I'm not going to just be kicking and screaming about it. You know, if I really believe he's going to do what he feels he wants to do that's best for him. That's what I feel. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's, at the end of the day, this is entertainment, right? We're not talking about, you know, doctors and people saving people's lives. We're talking about, so if someone says they don't want to play, right, as a sports person, I'll probably be like, I really want to see them out there. But on a real level, I'm not going to say get out there and you got a contract. I mean, these contracts, I mean, if they don't pay, you know, they just don't get paid. This is how it is. So it's I look at it again, like Jeff said before, this is a job, right? This is change the scenario instead of a vaccine. If my job was like, yeah, we want you to go work in these unsafe conditions, if I don't want to do that, I shouldn't be forced to do that. Yeah. Now, again, there are consequences. If I don't go to work, don't get a check, we understand that. But I think in this context, it's sports. And I've always been, I mind my own business. I'm not worried about what's in other people's pockets. I might make fun of you a little bit, you know, we talked about Schroeder. I'm like, bro, you really fumbled the bag. But I mean, other than that, at the end of the day, he's still a millionaire. He's still well off. But you know, I'm not, at the end of the day, it really impact me other than just a lack of entertainment.
But no, see, entitlement would be still getting paid and not playing. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I remember last season, a lot of NFL players were like, I'm not going to play this season, man. I don't know. And I was never mad at them, but they didn't get paid. I think entitlement would somehow be like, Kyrie's supposed to still try to get this full check. Like, no, bro. If you're going to play just the home games, then that's fair to me. Like, that's
this is a contract y'all negotiated.
Exactly.
He was going to play 82 games, right, home and away. you sat down and you said this. You didn't none of us foresaw the pandemic. None of us foresaw that. So there was no way for us to negotiate that. So that's just something we just got to deal with. But yeah, no, you're not entitled to that at all. You got to show up for work. Just like I got to show up for work if I want to get a check.
Well, guys, man, we're about to wrap it up. We got any other last quotes or comments before we get out, man? Because I've really enjoyed this talk. We could keep going. There's so many layers to this. But anything else before we go?
All I'll say is, in the words of Jalen Rose, listen, I'm not on either side of the vaccine, but I encourage people to, do their research and get vaccinated. Keep getting them checks. Don't get fired. That's all I can say.
Yeah, Jeff, anything else?
No, thanks for having me. Swami is here. Enjoyed myself. It was a good talk. I myself am vaccinated. I would encourage you to be educated, make wise decisions. Don't fumble the bag.
Definitely do not, guys. Yeah, we might have to. We were talking business, but season's coming back. We might have to give our season preview like we used to do back in the day on the old show. But thank you all for joining us. You know where to find us. This is, of course, the Shareholders Podcast, Mighty Sharp Network. Again, I'm gonna send a reminder out. If you've been enjoying the We Seen It podcast, I got a lot of people hitting me up, want to be on We Seen It. We Seen It is going to its own channel. Okay,
yeah.
So this is gonna be the last week, and we got shows coming on its own channel. Subscribe to that. If you want to come on, talk about Back to the Future, some Indiana Jones, hit me up, man. We Seen It is all encompassing. So we'd be glad to have you on. But thank you guys for joining me so much, guys. Again, like they said, be safe, folks. That's above anything else. We really just want everybody to be safe out there, because this thing with COVID is still out there, still real, still getting people. And we're just trying to urge caution, not making this political or anything like that. But guys, as always, thank you for being there for us. Join us on the show. Please, please, please be blessed. Stay sharp.